around. I know the joins happen very quickly, and people are scrolling through the live. Tonight's goal, we have 10 hand hearts. So each night I'm adding one hand heart to our goal. Of course, all of it helps bring awareness. Also, 20,000 likes gets us to the FYP. So tapping's clapping. So just keep it going. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and go live in all the places. All right, so welcome to Love Over Coffee, Voices Not Heard. This is a platform and a podcast for the marginalized, the silenced, and the abused. And first, I want to say, Danae, thank you for being our guest.
You're welcome.
I discovered you because you're being courageous and brave about sharing your story on TikTok. And I know that you're not only sharing this month, but you've been sharing since it occurred. And I think that you are to be commended for doing that, because we know that for many of us, abuse, it rests in the crevices of lies and secrecy and privacy. And many people are silenced by, what happens in our home should stay in our home. And,
Right.
Other people don't need to know our business and things like that. And that is what keeps us sometimes controlled, even though we would like very much to leave. So I want to take a moment and welcome Danae Hartman. She is tonight's guest on Love Over Coffee, Voices Not Heard. So I just want to start with the same question that I always start with. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you've been. And tell us where you're going. And of course, only tell us what you feel safe and comfortable sharing.
My name is Danae Hartman. I am a domestic violence survivor. I am moving forward in my recovery. I am going to counseling. I am trying to release my triggers and get them out of my system, because I think it's time for us survivors to move forward.
Amen. Because while we're trying to figure out how to get back to life, they certainly go on, don't they?
They do.
Oftentimes they go on to abuse others. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for the like and the loves and the shares. It all helps to bring awareness to the issue of domestic violence. So Danae, let's go back to the beginning, because I know you were 19.
I was 19.
So tell us a little bit about the start of the relationship, and then we'll talk about some of the red flags later. But just tell us about the beginning, and I guess where did it change?
The beginning was really good. It changed when he moved in with me and I caught him cheating on me. But the beginning, I didn't see no red flags. He was loving, he was caring, putting on the show like most people do.
Right. And so how long do you feel like that good side, that good image, what they call the mask in narcissism, and I do want to make clear, all narcissists are abusers, but not all abusers are narcissistic. The tactics can be the same, the honeymoon period and the very much the charmer. So when you look back, because luckily for Janae, and I say that relatively speaking, her relationship was short-lived.
It was.
Because Janae, if it had not been, I'm not sure you might be sitting here, because it sounds like it was a very physically abusive relationship. But when you look back, where do you think the mask began to fell off? Like, how long was that really good stuff?
I would say it lasted a month before I started noticing all the red flags.
What were some of the initial red flags, other than cheating, which is bad enough, but what were some of the other things that you feel like were?
He made me walk home from work, and he knew I needed a ride. He wouldn't cuddle with me. He just ignored me when I wanted his attention. He called me fat and told me I needed to lose some weight. And that's when I started noticing the red flags.
And at what point was he physically abusive, and to what degree did that play out?
By degree, do you mean like hospital? Like
I guess what kinds of things did he? Again, I know that a lot of this is a trigger in the sense that it brings back the memories, and I also know that sharing is therapeutic. So it's a double-edged sword, you know.
Right.
Talking about it can be difficult, but also it helps others. But so, what kinds of things did he do physically after you encountered the cheating and you called him on it?
He choked me. He got mad at me, said I was just crazy, and choked me. One time I called him out on it in the shower. He choked me out in the shower, and I ended up in the emergency room.
How long did you know? Again, you know, I sometimes hear myself and hear the questions I'm asking. And, you know, I never want anything to seem as though we blame the victim, because, you know, even for someone who is SA'd, we often say, well, you know, what were you wearing and where were you and why did, you know, those kinds of things. And some of it is fact gathering, and yet it also skirts right up to that line of, you know, where were you and what were you doing and why were you doing it there? So what... you know, I guess, at what point did you realize, I guess, that it was beyond what you could handle, and that you decided to leave or escape, or...
It was around my birthday that I decided, you know, I'm turning 20. This is too much. I do not want to be in this abusive relationship forever. So like I said, I hooked up with my fiance, because I had no witnesses to tell him it was over, and he scared me that much to the point where I had to do something on my own.
So how long had you known him? That was the question I was going to. And I get my own distraction because, you know, it brings back my own memories and things. But how long did you know him prior to being involved with him? How had he come into your life?
My parents got divorced. His mom was a really close friend of my dad's. So I met him through his mom. And plus, we rode the same school bus together. And...
Go ahead. So you rode the school bus together,
and that's how we known each other through prior to that. And then one day he just asked me out, and I'm like, okay, why not?
right. Had you known anything about any of his past relationships? Because, I look back now and I realize that the guy that I was involved with, there were lots of patterns of behavior. And I even found information later that, called him the same thing that I figured him out to be, which was a narcissistic sociopath. But, did you know anything about him before your parents' divorce? Did you have any inkling of past relationships with him or anything?
No, I did not.
Have you found out anything since?
Well, I did communicate with his ex a little, and she warned me, but I didn't take those warnings seriously as I should have. She kind of did the same thing. She left him. She cheated on him with another guy because,
Right. Well, and that's common. I think it's common to not believe an ex at the time, because I know that in my own situation, the ex in my life was very busy telling me about how crazy the exes were.
Right.
And, and when you've met a great guy and you think they're great, it all makes sense that, of course, they would say, well, the ex is crazy and that's why they're mad and this and that. But you just don't realize yet how much of a red flag that is. Because, the guy I was with wanted me to immediately, block everybody on every social media platform. So I know that sometimes we get a very clear picture as we look back. Hello, Karen, Miss Aloha from Hawaii, who's watching on the book. Again, thank you, everyone, on TikTok. We're here with Danae Hartman, a young woman who was 19 at the time that she entered into an abusive relationship. Luckily and fortunately for her, it was 6 months, but I want to caution people, sadly, it is not the length of the relationship that determines the impact it may have on someone. So, as you've worked with your counselor, Danae, what are you finding that you're dealing with at this point?
I would say I have trust issues at this point because I don't know who I can trust and who I can't. I do have trouble talking about what happened to me in the past and my triggers, because it seems like every time I talk about them to her, more night terrors come up.
So what are you,
So we're working on moving forward on how I can, what's the word? Feel safe in my own room. Because at first I didn't feel safe in my own room. It was just, I would sleep on the couch.
So as you move forward, how much time now has passed between the incidents of abuse and now?
I would say it's been 6 years, but like I told you earlier, he just messaged me yesterday and my heart dropped. So I instantly blocked him. Like he's a whole nother level of stalking.
Right, right. Well, as I said, I would encourage you to definitely pursue extending that or renewing it, whatever you have to do. Other than your counselor, Danae, who has been, I guess, your support system?
My support system would be my friend Raven.
We hope he's watching. Hello, Raven. We don't know if you're watching or not.
She's been by my side since all of this. She doesn't look at me like I'm crazy. That's why I don't talk to my mom about my trauma, because she looks at me like I'm crazy. So, like,
how have you dealt with some of that? Because, again, we often culturally we victim blame and shame as though somehow you should have seen something sooner, should have left sooner, should have whatever sooner. We never seem to be able to please the right people by doing the right thing fast enough.
right.
They forget to see that we loved someone and we were trying to make it work, and so we stayed longer. And we also, we are groomed by the person we first met that never really existed. So, how big is your circle at this point, Danae? Angel, you may need to leave and come back. The TikTok has its own issues with glitchiness lately, so you may need to leave and come back in. It's just the nature of the platform. I think it's a busy time right now on TikTok right now. So how have you dealt with? You said your mom has a hard time hearing. Who else has had a hard time hearing your truth and being supportive or not supportive, and how big is your circle at this point of friends and family?
So I just had to get rid of 2 toxic friends. One I'm pressing harassment charges on. The other is just gone because she's an alcoholic. But that's not the point. So all I have is my fiance, my counselor, my dad, of course, he supports me. Yeah, I would say my friends group's gotten a lot smaller. My friend Jules, I just met her on TikTok, not that long ago. So
how has the TikTok has become, shall we just say, an interesting platform. You can see everything and anything, and sometimes nothing at all, especially late at night.
right.
How has TikTok been, I guess, a good thing for someone in your situation?
It helped, like, before I was just shutting down, like, before I met you, before I met my counselor, before I knew that I had people who went through the same thing as me on TikTok. It's just, I guess it feels good, like a comfort thing, not knowing that someone else has been abused, but knowing someone out there understands the people that been through it.
And what about what's been hard about the TikTok platform? Have you been, I guess, harassed in any way by others who don't believe your story?
Yes.
Have you been stalked and harassed by others who know him?
I've been stalked and harassed about people not believing me on it. I just deal with it. I'm just like, you don't have to believe me. It happened, If you don't like what you're seeing, just block me or keep on scrolling.
That's it. Keep on scrolling. That's what I say. Keep on scrolling. Because I know you've made lots of videos. If you're not following Danae on TikTok, she has made a lot of videos about abuse and how it has impacted her life, and some of the things that she's doing for recovery. And it's not easy to be so public. So Danae, I have to ask you, because people ask me all the time. So of course I'm going to ask you, what made you decide to be so public?
I feel like other people should know that there's other people out there and that they're not alone. So I kind of decided to become public when people started to ask me, can you help me? I said yes. So I'm like trying to prepare myself to help other people and just walk them through it, give them advice.
Did you have, prior to your own lived experience, had you been up close and personal to any other domestic violence situations? And do you know anyone else personally that has gone through it? Especially since, and I ask this because a growing group of abusers are teenagers who are in dating relationships where some things are being normalized, like jealousy, and I don't know why you have to wear that, and that kind of thing. So, to what degree did you have experience of and or knowledge of domestic violence as a teenager?
As a teenager, so with me being 19, prior to that, I was almost sexually assaulted. So, it was my junior year. My dad hooked me up with a prom date. I was just planning on going with friends. And my cousin told my prom date that I was just using him for prom, so he thought it would be cool if he tried to rape me.
Well, and that's another area of abuse, and it happens so much as you're coming of age, because even at 59, I still hear, well, what you won't do, some other woman will, and it makes you feel as though you need to do things or give in to things or expect things, because if you don't, some other woman will, and therefore, if you want a relationship,